I'm Laura A. Grace, and I'm a manga creator, but I'm not an illustrator. Welcome back to my video series. I am super duper excited you're here. If you've been following the series, I have good news, friends. We are finally talking about how did I find my illustrator. And I will say that is one time consuming process. Don't be discouraged. It is so hard. It is so hard. But I hope just me sharing how I found my illustrator can be encouraging to you, friends, because I really did get discouraged, like trying to find an illustrator that matched the style and the vision that I had for my story, and most importantly, but with that, met my price range or was in the budget that I was planning and wanting. And I guess kicking off there is that before you start looking for an illustrator, last week we did talk about how you need to decide what size manga that you want, who's going to be your printer and distributor, or if they're going to be the same, like Kindle Direct Publishing or Ingram Spark, that you need to already know what you want to do there. And if you're curious about hearing more about that, definitely check out last week's video. But with that, or after you have chose that, you need to decide what is your budget. And this is super important. And I'm not going to say like what the ideal budget is or anything like that. I think that my budget at the time that I was aiming for was hopefully $1,000, and that would be for roughly 35 to 40 pages, and that included a cover. I feel like that's a little bit of a stretch, especially when you start looking at Manga Illustrator's prices and it's like, oh my goodness. So it's definitely really pricey. But that included, I should mention as well, the storyboard, because as I've shared before, I did not storyboard my manga. I didn't do any kind of storyboarding because honestly I was intimidated by the process and I really didn't know where to start just with storyboarding. I've learned so much since then, but at that time I really just had zero idea, and I was just like, you know what, I want my Manga Illustrator to do that. And I feel like maybe what was discouraging for me as I was looking for a Manga Illustrator is that there are plenty of manga illustrators. I believe I had looked up manga illustrators for hire, I believe is the term I used on Google. And I do want to mention that when I first connected, not the very first time, but when my Manga Illustrator and I moved forward on a project, because originally I had pitched a different manga that we were going to work together. That was at the end of 2019. I think it was October. And anyway, I decided not to move forward with this story. And then I was also going to work with a different illustrator, Kara Janes. And again, we were going to move forward. She edited the manga, and I just was not feeling at peace about moving forward. And so I felt I should put that manga on hold. And it still is on hold, but I do still have the super shiny art that Kara did for that story called Denying Me, which actually might have a title change. I don't know, but I feel like there's something missing about that story. But sorry, we're talking about Gathering Faith. So all of this happened when I very first connected with her. I believe it was in October of 2019. We didn't move forward with me like putting the down payment for this manga for Gathering Faith until March 2020. So I definitely apologize if like things were actually a little bit different from what I originally did, but I did try to look back at the process, or not the process, I did try to look back at the notes I had taken and some of our emails of when everything started moving forward. I had found so many manga illustrators, but many of them did not storyboard. And that was really hard because I needed that and I didn't know how to do it. And I didn't really necessarily want to hire two separate people. I wanted the same person or the same illustrator to do the whole manga and just the whole project in general. And I think it's important that a budget is in place beforehand, because there were so many times that I found illustrators that I felt had a good price, but their art didn't quite match what I was envisioning. I had to consistently remind myself to stick to it, stick to my vision, to not settle, even if it was a better price or maybe it costs more, but I love the art more. I went and just saved their information. But I guess even before that, I originally, going back to the beginning, sorry guys, that's a little bit rambly there. Going back to the beginning, I Googled manga illustrators for hire, and I also thought a great place to start was Fiverr. And I went on Fiverr, and I remember there was this incredible shonen artist, like wow, his art was just so phenomenal. I remember really, really, really wanting to work with this guy, but I'm like, I don't write shonen. I don't have action scenes quite the same. This would definitely, I guess, be more of a shoujo in the age gear. Maybe. I don't really actually know. I've never thought about that until I just said that just now. But I knew that my manga was not considered shonen for sure. And so as much as I really wanted to work with him because of just how extraordinary his art was, I was like, well, we could save his information, but we need to keep looking. I did not find, or I don't recall anybody else that had grabbed my attention on Fiverr. So I went back, looked at what links were popping up for the manga illustrators for hire. And the next website that came up was People Per Hour. And whew, that was quite an adventure. I will say that, because there were hundreds and hundreds of manga illustrators that popped up. And that is where I was really feeling like I was tested, so to speak, because it was like either I'm going to stick to my vision or I'm going to stick to my budget or I'm just going to blow both of them. Because sometimes I would find an illustrator who would storyboard, but I didn't necessarily like their art. Or I'd find an illustrator who would also storyboard, but their price range was way outside of the budget that I had set. And just many times I felt it was so challenging because there are just so many incredible artists out there. There's so many artists who just pour their heart into their work, and it shows, and it's beautiful, and it just was a real challenge. And I prayed so much through that process because eventually I felt like I was looking at so much art that I'm like, I really don't know who to choose. I don't know who is the person that I need to work with. But I came across my illustrator, whose name is Laura. I was ecstatic. She storyboarded. Her art was amazing, and she met my price range. And I was like, oh my goodness, like, I love it. And so I was going to try and reach out to her, but the email function on People Per Hour was not working. And I was like, oh my goodness, I think I found my manga illustrator and I can't contact her. And thankfully, she had left her Facebook link at the time, or her no, she doesn't have a website, or I don't know about now, but at the time she didn't have a website link, or it was just Facebook, but it was some kind of social media link that I clicked on. I ended up, it must have been YouTube. I remember ending up on her YouTube page, and I was like, wow, it's like she has content here. Then I was like, well, there's no way for me to contact her because I don't remember why, but there was just no kind of contact thing. Something happened though, and I was eventually able to find her on Facebook at that time and was just so excited. She had more of her art up on Facebook, I said, at that time. And I was like, I prayed and I was like, Lord, I'm going to reach out to her and see what she says. And thankfully, like, she had contacted me, I think almost not instantly, but it was a very quick turnaround time. And I was just so floored. I was so excited. I remember crying because I really felt like her art and the price and whatnot were within my boundaries, and just that the art, I felt like, matched the vision that was in my head. Because again, it was just, it could be so quick to settle for something that was less than the original vision I had. And I feel like it maybe wouldn't have been wrong, but would I have really been happy having to settle for something else that I didn't want? I don't know, but I'm really, really thankful I kept looking. I don't know how many hours I invested, because I know it was not a one night thing. It was like one day I looked on Fiverr, and then People Per Hour, I felt like I had looked over for the course of days, and it would be like an hour at a time just sitting at my computer, and I would save other illustrators and save their work and think about like, okay, this person seems like they'd be a good fit, but I don't know, something feels off, but I'm going to save their information and then we come back later, and just so much searching. But that was back in October of 2019, and I will say that she has just been so patient, because at that time she was readily available, and then as time went on, I was like, well, I'm not going to do that manga. It was quite a few months. I mean, it was then in March when we moved forward, and it was really fast when we moved forward. But then things with COVID came up and everything just got pushed way back for a release and her getting the pages done. The really cool thing was, I do want to mention, of reaching out to her, and sometimes how it can be really important to reach out to an illustrator, because I was nervous a little bit of how and who she was, because I hadn't interacted with her. I had seen her art, admired her art, and loved it, but I didn't know how she was. And she was just so super kind and so understanding. She does speak Spanish, so we do have a little bit of a language barrier there. Praise God for Google Translate, because that's been definitely a lifesaver, I think, for both of us. But the cool thing is her price that she had on People Per Hour, she actually gave me a discount and a deal because I had reached out to her personally one-on-one. She was like, look, if you know how many pages you have and have just a rough idea of like what you want in the pages, she's like, you can pay half of whatever I feel the total price would be for these pages. And I am just so glad we did that because it definitely saved more money, and I feel like I would have gone over my budget if it had not been for that discount, but I was able to stay in that means. Now, the manga has grown since she's done the storyboards. She added a few pages to help with the flow and the direction of the story. It doesn't take away from what I did. It actually definitely enhances it, and I'm really thankful for that. And I don't know exactly how much the cover would cost because we're not quite there just yet, but I hope that that will still stay in the means that I had for my original budget. And that is how I met my illustrator back in 2019. It has been definitely a long journey we've had. Both of us have had a lot of things that have come up, but she has just been so kind and very patient with me, and hopefully I've been very patient with her, and hopefully, yeah, that later this year that Gathering Faith will be here and you can see all of the incredible work that she has done, because as she has slowly sent me pages, I have just been like, each time I feel like I cry because it's just so surreal seeing my story illustrated in this kind of way. If you've worked with an illustrator before, totally let me know. I would love to hear your experience and where you looked. And also, if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. And thanks so much for watching. And stay encouraged, be encouraged, and keep writing your manga. Bye!